Welcome to the Inquiry 2.0. Today we're going to talk about a bloody Canning Town Gangland feud between Tibbs, Mickey Fawcett and associates, including the Nicholls and the Kerseys. This went on, it started late 60s and went into the early 70s. And when I say it was a bloody feud, it most certainly was. And you could probably call it more of a war than anything else. However, what I'm going to do today, I'm going to read you a Daily Mirror report from 1973, which you can see in front of you now on the screen. And it talks about the Tibbs and how they made their own rules and they ran the East End. I'm going to interject throughout this article and give you the real version and not just the media version of what actually happened and the unfair way that the media portrayed the Tibbs family in cohorts with Bertie Wickstead, infamous policeman who brought the Soho Godfathers, etc. down, and he would get a result no matter what. So I'm going to upload slides as I go. I've not really used this format before, but we'll see how we find it. If you enjoy it, let me know in the comments and go from there. Okay, The Outlaws. Daily Mirror, Friday, January 19th, 1973. The Tibbs family made up their own rules in London's tough East End. They did not recognise the law. In their own violent world, their word was law, and they enforced it ruthlessly. Even when their rivals attacked them, no policeman was ever allowed to know the grim details. When the Tibbs Cafe, near James Tibbs' scrapyard in Canning Town, was seriously damaged by an explosion in April 1971, I'm just going to put this up on the screen. Where am I? Was wrecked by an explosion outside his house, and another explosion, in 1971. Detectives met a blank wall of silence. When Jimmy Tibbs' van was wrecked by an explosion outside his house the same month, police questions led nowhere. In July that year, there was another violent explosion in the scrapyard. Neighbours thought it was a bomb, but the police got no cooperation in their investigations. They came up against the Tibbs family rule that the clan would take care of its own problems. When the police questioned Tibbs Sr. about an alleged attack with a knife on his son Robert, he told them, "I don't inform to the police. I have my own way of dealing with these matters." So I'm just going to interject on this. So they're criticising the Tibbs for not helping the police over attacks that were brought about on them, not the other way around. Okay, they had a cafe blown up where one of the family used to stay above. Luckily, he wasn't in there. They had Jimmy Tibbs' van blown up with his son inside. So I'm just going to put you that news article up here. Boy escapes murder bomb in a van. And just because they didn't deal with the police, which is an old East End way, this was a staunch family from Canning Town. And at that time, they weren't going to involve the police. It just wasn't the done thing to do. The police were not liked in working class areas. It's just a simple fact. So I don't think you can criticise them for looking after the family the old school way and dealing with them themselves. But it's a very critical article. This is on the Tibbs. I shall continue. He was so confident of his family's reign of terror. Let me just interject again. They're the ones having bombs used on them. He was so confident of his family's reign of terror that he could not believe that any witnesses would have the courage to give evidence against them. The man who finally broke that reign of terror was Scotland Yard's gangbuster chief superintendent, Albert Wickstead. He too is an East Londoner, and he decided to fight the Tibbs gang with shock tactics. Last April, he led 150 detectives in a surprise swoop on suspected members of the gang. 8 members were arrested, including James Tibbs and his 3 sons. Even then, Tibbs Sr. could not believe that anyone would talk. He told the gangbuster he would never get any witnesses. But the bold police move gave courage to those who had suffered in the Tibbs reign of fear. The witnesses did come forward. They revealed at the Old Bailey that prosecuting counsel, Mr. Michael Corkery, described as a sickening story of hatred, violence, and severe personal injury. It was a campaign, the jury was told, to terrorise parts of the East End and teach salutary lessons to rivals or anyone out of favour of the Tibbs family. Once again, I'll just interject on this. I find it amazing looking back at these old archives. The Tibbs family, just to give you a brief background of them, Jimmy Tibbs was a great amateur boxer. He turned over to professional, starting a professional career. His dad ran a family scrap metal business, amongst other things. Prominent family in Canning Town. Yeah, probably a bit of ducking and diving and, doing bits and pieces which were against the law, as everyone did around those times. But they weren't like some kind of ruthless crime syndicate, but were a respected, tough family. Okay. And their uncle got beaten up by a man 30 odd years 30 years younger than him in the pub, got battered, eyes blacked, teeth smashed out, whatever. That was in 1968. And that's what sparked everything off. Jimmy Tibbs and friends went to the cab office of the guy who did it, pulled a shotty out, and the guy got shot in the leg. Now, the Tibbs family say it was a scuffle, either which way. I'm not condoning it, but there was a reason behind it. And that is what really started off when they came out from a 10-month stretch on remand from Brixton Prison. That's what kicked off everything. The fact that had happened, they got away with it. They felt because they didn't get they got a suspended sentence. And Robert Tibbs, I'll just put the picture back up of the guys so you can see the pictures of the different family members. Robert Tibbs, as you can see in front of you, he was out drinking, had an altercation with one of the guys he was drinking with, Mickey Fawcett, who was a villain from the days of the craze. He's got a book out as well now, still alive actually. Serious guy himself, hard man, was mates with Roy Shaw, etc. He was there, allegedly he says he tried to break it up. It kicked off, they were going pub to pub, they were all pissed up, and it's kicked off, but someone's come up behind Robert Tibbs and cut his throat. So after that had happened, it was just mayhem, tit for tat, attacks, etc. But they were using incendiary devices. I can't use the word beginning with a B, because I'll probably get struck. But they were blowing them up. Like they tried to kill him and his son, Jimmy Tibbs and his son, and they blew the cafe up. All sorts of stuff was going on. But they're making it out on here that it was just the Tibbs who were doing things. So I'll continue. One of the witnesses was publican Leonard Kersey. He made the mistake of referring to the family as dirty bastards. Soon afterwards, he was leaving his flat when he was attacked by a group of men, including Jimmy Tibbs and his brother John, to shouts of "kill him." He was slashed with knives and hit with an axe. When surgeons measured his cuts, they totaled more than 36 inches. Only an emergency operation saved his life. Two more witnesses were brothers, Albert and Terence Nicholls. They had been rude to Tibbs. In March 1971, they were attacked as they left a public house. They tried to run for their car, but they were caught by Jimmy Tibbs holding a shooter, Robert Tibbs with a knife, and two other members of the gang. Terence Nicholls was stabbed and battered with a golf club. His brother was driven over by two men, and Jimmy Tibbs beat him with a metal bar. The boxer fell out of the car because the passenger door was not properly shut, and Albert Nicholls was able to escape at traffic lights. Now, this situation that they're referencing here was a big fight outside a pub, basically, between the Nicholls and their friends and the Tibbs. Okay, the Nicholls are the ones who battered Bogey, Jimmy Tibbs' uncle, who was like in his 60s and he was in his 20s, and they were a dangerous firm themselves, the Nicholls. So this was like a gangland fight. We're not talking here of the Tibbs fighting against some innocent family. They were all, involved in criminality to certain extents. But what happened was Bert Wickstead, Albert Wickstead, do they call him here? But I think they all call him Bert anyway. Bert Wickstead was known for, he was known as being a clean officer in the sense that he didn't take bribes or anything like that, but he was known to make evidence fit, to find evidence if needs be, if he felt someone was guilty. And in his book and his memoirs, he said that he decided that one of these opposing firms had to be taken out to quell the violence, and the decision was made that the Tibbs had to go. And I believe the reason behind that was because the Tibbs would not cooperate with the police, whereas the other side decided that to save themselves, that they would cooperate and be witnesses, as it says here, that they actually gave evidence against the Tibbs family. So I'll continue. So in March 1971, they were attacked as they left a public house. Okay, we've gone through that. Terry Nicholls was stabbed and battered with a golf club. His brother was driven over by 2 men, and Jimmy Tibbs beat him with a metal bar. Last year, while the Tibbs were in custody, several key witnesses were threatened. Some fled from their homes, 2 left the country. One man was kidnapped and beaten up by members of the gang who were still free. Scotland Yard's campaign against the Tibbs gang opened last February, with 10 specially chosen officers. Chief Superintendent Wickstead sifted the rumours, tested the facts, and planned his attack. Then at 5:30 a.m. on April the 4th, the big roundup began. An army of carefully briefed police officers descended on a long list of underworld names. At precisely the same moment, from then on, the Tibbs' reign of terror was over. The law had caught up with the outlaws. So that's the end of that article. I'm just going to put you on another article here where the Yard accuses 12 in gang swoop. So yeah, just to continue on, Bert Wickstead decided that they had to go. So he orchestrated all these witnesses. Mickey Fawcett, who was allegedly the man behind Robert Tibbs getting slashed, his throat getting slashed, he did one to Spain when all the kicking off was happening, and he was sort of pulling the strings, allegedly, from abroad. But he did come back over, and he was a witness also at the trial, although he says he didn't say anything that would incriminate the Tibbs. He just made it clear that he wasn't involved in things to sort of clear his name. Although Jimmy Tibbs says in his autobiography he has transcribes and whatnot, and they were all serving the Tibbs family up, which goes against the moral code. There was accusations from both sides that the Tibbs had a relationship with the police because of their scrap metal yard, and that's why the initial shooting at the cab office, which kicked things off, they got a suspended sentence of 3 years. They'd done 10 months on a remand. Jimmy Tibbs and his mates had. And on the other side, it's clear from these news reports that they were witnesses, and you can't, as a criminal, you can't be a witness. It's just not. It's not following the code. But what I'd like to say on that is there's a big difference with cultivating or having a relationship with the old belt for big crime families or big crime syndicates, and cultivating assets, whether it be in the police, whether it be in the customs officials, whether it be DVLA, anything that can benefit your business empire and push it forward. Because after all, it is a business. It's a criminal business. I get it. It's not, it's not within the laws, but it's still run as a business. And if you can cultivate assets that will help your business flourish, you're going to do that. That's different from grassing. Grassing is where they've got something over you, so you have to give them information or do their bidding. You don't have to, but some people will. Or you get a monetary gain from it for snitching. And that's 2 completely separate things, just to make that clear. It's from reading these articles, the Tibbs did not deal with the police in that way. They sorted their own problems out. Now, Jimmy got 10 years. I think they all got a range of big sentences. But he came out and he changed his life around. A God-fearing man, world champion boxing trainer, him and his son, Jimmy Tibbs Jr., and they've done brilliantly for themselves. Got a book out, well respected. I don't know where they're living nowadays. I doubt they're in Canning Town still. They may be, I don't know, but I presume they'd be in Essex or somewhere. That's where most of the people from East London went, the faces from back in the day. And Mickey Fawcett, he is still knocking about. I believe he got a book out, and I'll put links to the books of Jimmy Tibbs and Mickey Fawcett in the description. But I thought that was an interesting one to cover. Let me know what you thought of this format, where I'm sort of more, rather than reading a story, I'm just having a chat. Obviously, I'm going to be doing my documentary still, but I thought this could be a way of mixing it up a little bit. So if you enjoyed it, like I say, let me know in the comments, and also give me some suggestions of moments in time, 20th century crime stuff that you'd like me to cover and discuss and do a bit of research on and chat in this way, and potentially we can maybe do some lives in the future. Okay, thank you for watching.